Amateur Hour. Jeez, podcast. Amateur Hour. Jeez, podcast. Amateur Hour podcast on KC Sports Network. Amateur on KC Sports Network. Hour on KC Sports Network. Podcast on KC Sports Net. We're gonna talk Chiefs football for you, and you, and you, and you.
What is this, amateur hour?
Yeah, I ain't no Superman businessman like you. You know, I'm just an
amateur,
I suppose.
Amateur hour
is what's happening.
Amateur hour
Is what's happening.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Yeah, that's right, folks. The show is called Amateur Hour. I'm Ryan Scott Hall, and joining me today, still live from Cancun, is Dirkness.
I'm taking up residency here. It's nice.
Yeah, man.
Man, January can be so much better. No stress.
Cancun's pretty good. Pretty good in January. I'm not gonna lie. Pretty interesting to see how the other side lives, I guess.
The upside down.
Yeah, right. A lot of football going on, not necessarily involving the Chiefs, not too much Chiefs news, but I still have heard a rumor. Dirk, did you get your big thing fixed?
Oh, you know, things, you go to Cancun, you get a lot of things fixed for a lot cheaper than you can here in the States. It's a different world. So, yeah, I was able to spin this podcast money into a new big thing. First, I just want to say all glory to God. Sorry, Goodell. Roger Goodell. For an all-time weekend of football. God, that was nice. I just want to bottle it up and relive it on some meaningless weekend in May when I had nothing to watch. So that was great. And I'm thankful the Chiefs didn't drag out their season and miss the playoffs in like the final week at like 9-8, because it really took like a few weeks to get over all that. And if that was happening now, like you just wouldn't be able to enjoy like that fantastic weekend of football. So I know like a few weeks, I was watching football just because that's what I do. But it took a few weeks in there until like, I think it was the Seahawks 49ers, like great, or not Seahawks, Rams, great game in there. And I was like, oh man, I can enjoy football again. So thankful for that. But watching this weekend, big takeaway, like a lot of folks, just feels like there's no great teams. Today's NFL, just like a roll the ball out there, see who can fuck up the least, and then who can come through at the end. But I kind of feel like we say that every year now. Like it becomes this point of confidence for everybody. Every November and December, we look around the league and see that every team is flawed. So I'm just kind of looking around the landscape. You look at the Bills, you know, they got Josh Allen in the number one running game. They got the number one pass D, which it probably isn't, but it's a good pass D. And yet they're the 6th seed. They're not a great team. Jags take them down to the wire. We totally outclassed the Jags. We wouldn't have lost that game without a 100-yard pick six in that game. Texans, even down the stretch when we're struggling, could have easily beaten them. Most agree we would have if we didn't go for that weird 4th down. Broncos, 2 late game drives for the offense to ice that game. Couldn't get it done, but right there with them. So that's just kind of like the landscape of the AFC right there. So I'm just not sure great teams really exist in today's NFL anymore. Like I think about these, you know, rankings, the best teams of the last 25 years that were kind of going around in the offseason. And I don't know who really the truly great teams are from the last decade. Like I know the Chiefs just went on an all-time run, but each of their individual teams, you know, has their flaws to them. And I'm not sure any one of their teams is like an all-time team. It was just, you know, they got the job done and that's how they won. I I'd almost go back to like 2013 Seahawks for what I would call an all-time team. Like they felt like a complete team that kind of mowed through the playoffs with a convincing Super Bowl win. But I just haven't. I feel like we've had generational players in Tom Brady and Mahomes and maybe Josh Allen. But part of the reason we call them that is because they just come through at the end of these coin flip games. So all of this just kind of has me coming back to our big question for this offseason. Do the Chiefs have a big problem or a little problem? And after watching this weekend, I'm kind of come around to the idea that the Chiefs aren't as far off as I was thinking a few weeks ago, which I know won't be a popular opinion. I know this season was an absolute train wreck, but I really just think a lot of little things went against them. Things got stale, but even with all their flaws, they're competitive against all these top teams. And if it comes down to this again next year, I still trust Mahomes to play his best in January. And yes, I still trust Andy Reid to get the best out of his team in January. So I know like we look at this roster and see a bunch of holes, but I look around the rest of the NFL and I see a bunch of holes. So I feel like it's kind of like daunting to like fix them all, but I just don't think that's realistic. And I don't think it's necessary to get back because the Chiefs have won Super Bowls before with flawed teams. And that's just kind of a big thing.
Yeah. It's interesting because, I've been thinking about the Broncos, the Broncos as the top seed with the bye, home field advantage in the AFC, 14-3. One game back of the pace that the Chiefs set last year. And the Broncos were the one-score game champs this year. They kind of took over that mantle from the Chiefs. I don't know if they went undefeated in one-score games this year, but I mean, they only lost 3 games the whole season. So, but like, I don't know, man. I was listening to that podcast that Petro does with McDowell and Chadia, and they were talking about like lessons to learn from each of the playoff teams. Like when you look at who is in this playoff field, what can you learn from each of these teams? And when they were talking about the Broncos, they were like, it's capable to build through, free agency and stuff, because like the Broncos are like, they do have plenty of drafted guys. I think that like their core is not necessarily from the draft, and the Chiefs have all these drafted players. But what I feel like in that instance, people are failing to remember, and this popped up for us kind of late in the season this year, like we had almost forgotten about it. The Broncos and some of these other teams like the Bears, they are firmly in rookie quarterback contract window. And so, if you think specifically about the Broncos, their ability to make Surtain the highest paid corner in the league while also going out and signing this offseason the likes of Hufanga and the linebacker Greenlaw, being able to pay somebody like Zach Allen. They paid Mike McGlinchey top of the market money at right tackle. Like they went out and did all of those things because Bo Nix is, paid $7 or $8 million as the, 12th overall pick. And so they've got that unique advantage there that just puts them at 14-3. But as you mentioned, I still am not even convinced that Denver is a particularly good football team. The defense is sensational, but their offense is, I think, like right there with Mahomes in terms of being terrible at throwing the ball downfield. They've been really hot and cold offensively. It seems like since Dobbins got hurt, they just kind of crashed and burned offensively. The running game really went away for them. But all of that is to say, it's not specifically about Denver. I do think that you're right that it's probably the Chiefs are probably a lot closer to the 15-2 team that they were last year than any of us want to admit.
And really, I think if you just kind of look at those teams, like, last year's Chiefs should have been 12-5 or 13-4, and this year's Chiefs should have been 11-6. Like if you just kind of randomize those one-score games to what they should have been, that's kind of where those teams were. And so, and that Chiefs team had all these flaws, which did ultimately get exposed in the Super Bowl, but they still mowed down Houston. They took care of business against Houston, and then were able to beat Buffalo in the playoffs. Like those were legit games for a very flawed team, and they were still able to pull it out. So I still just think they're kind of right there. They just had a bunch of little things go against them. And I'm not saying they don't need to get better. They do need to get better, but I think that's very realistic to expect in one off season. You just you drop Jeremiah Love, who's a stud running back on this team right now, and it's, what do? They win a couple more games, then they're right there, and then they're still the dangerous Chiefs coming into the playoffs. So I just think they're there. It's just hard to see right now because of what a shit show the season was.
Well, and I think it's also that, like, this version, and I'm going to say the last 2 years, and maybe I'm just kind of fixated on that stat from last week that these last 2 years are the two lowest or fewest number of quarterbacks to throw for 4,000 yards since 2010. And so something about the league has shifted, it feels like, over the last couple of years. It's also the fact that, the Chiefs won back-to-back Super Bowls and then went to a third, lost it, and then this year crashed out of the playoffs. So I feel like something is changing about the league because the Chiefs were way up here and now they're out of the playoffs, right? I guess what I'm seeing is that this NFL of the last 2 years, it feels like what the NFL is supposed to be. It's the parity. It's like, don't get me wrong, the Chiefs had that 15-2 record, and you look at the Broncos of 14-3 record, and that doesn't scream parity, right? But like, it feels more competitive than ever before, not just because the Chiefs lost a bunch of games, but because we don't really know who's great. And any of these teams feel like they could lose to each other, and that some of the best teams or best record teams this year are rookie quarterback teams like the Broncos or the Patriots, and Bears. It's like there is something about the NFL maybe kind of returning to that parity where, I mean, who was the last team to win back-to-back Super Bowls before the Chiefs? It's the Patriots, but that wasn't it 2001, yep. 2002 or 2004,
3 and 4.
3 and 4. So, I mean, you're talking about 2 decades of not having back-to-back champions. So, like, the Chiefs were the outlier. We're the ones that were making the NFL different. And now it seems like it's maybe kind of getting back to the natural state of things where you can't sit there and just assume that the Chiefs are going to host, the AFC Championship again.
And that's why things feel so wide open because the Chiefs aren't in the playoffs. Like if the Chiefs are in it, that's what would make it not feel wide open because we'd be looking at the Chiefs for that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've always kind of struggled with like the answer to the question, like which Chiefs team of this run has been the best, because they all have their different flaws. I feel like the 2019 offense was the best offense of the run, but it's also the worst defense. 2023 is easily the best defense of the run, but it's also easily the worst offense. I guess you could say 2022 was the most balanced team that they had. And the offense was still clicking them, but they didn't have Tyreek Hill kind of thing. So maybe that's the answer. But even that year, games are coming down to making plays in the final seconds. It's Mahomes drawing a flag against Cincinnati to kick the game-winning field goal. It's Mahomes going on a big run, late in that game against the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. So it's not like it's not like that felt like an all-time team. It's just you just got to get to the dance and then be better than everybody, be more prepared than everybody else when it matters in those games. And shockingly, they weren't able to get to the dance. I didn't think it was necessarily possible, but you just got to get good enough to be back there in the dance and give yourselves a realistic shot and stay healthy enough. That's kind of the other, hidden factor here, that the Chiefs have mostly stayed very healthy throughout their, dynasty run here. Outside of the last couple of years when receivers and offensive line started breaking down. But, the back-to-back Super Bowl teams, they mostly stayed very healthy. And that's another huge factor in that.
Yeah. And I mean, gosh, if you look back at this weekend and think about like how some of those games played out, the least qualified playoff team, probably the Panthers.
Yeah.
Like lost their last game the day before the actual, they were crowned champions. They needed someone else to lose in order to make their way into these playoffs. And they're hosting the game, and so maybe there's a little advantage there that the Rams have to go across country, but I thought the Rams were going to annihilate the Panthers. I think everybody probably circled that one as the blowout of the weekend. I mean, it's the Shakey's game, right? Like they put it in the time slot that is going to get the fewest number of eyeballs. And that thing literally came down to like the last few plays. I mean, the Panthers pushed what I think a lot of people thought was, even though they're the 5 seed, like maybe the best team in the NFC, and they just pushed them to the absolute limit, man. There's not a whole lot that separates, in from out of these playoffs, depending on who you're looking at. I mean, like, we can look at some of the other teams that are picking in the top 10, like the Chiefs, and they don't have Patrick Mahomes, they don't have Andy Reid. And so I don't want it to become hyperbolic that like, hey, you never know. But guys, was it 5 or 6 teams that weren't in the playoffs, made the playoffs this year? And I think 3 of them went worst to first. Like
there was only one
fully returned, man.
There was only one division winner that repeated. 7 new division winners.
Yeah. I mean, that's if you're looking for, reason for optimism, that despite the fact that they're strapped for cash and that they only have 6 draft picks and it feels like everything was broken, like I think you're right, Dirk, man. They're really not as far away as we expect. And it's only taken us a few weeks to be able to kind of get that clarity. So imagine, how it's going to feel once free agency is actually at our door and they start plugging holes and then start drafting guys as well. Let's take a quick break. On the other side, I think we're going to fix the running back position.
Heather Luce, broker owner, KC Local Homes, and Emprise Bank has been a great partner for us. They're our partner in Possible. Debbie and I hit it off immediately, and she was one of the first bankers that I would say sat down with me and actually genuinely cared about my story and where I was coming from and what I was trying to do, not just what kind of loan do you need, how much equity do you have, and she really kind of laid out my options for me and just made the process make sense. And I felt comfortable with it. Start to talk about it and think about it. A building popped up that I wanted, that I could afford, and it was in a great area. And so they really guided me through the SBA. I used the SBA loan to acquire it and really guided me through that process and made it happen. I think that we talk about that a lot, where we wouldn't have a business. We wouldn't have what we have here if we didn't have the clientele that we do. I've always functioned out of a people over profits mentality. The houses sell themselves, right? Like, I'm here to help people and facilitate the transaction for them.
Hey, what's happening, people? It is Benny Heiss, KCSN betting analyst. And while the Chiefs may not be in the playoffs, that doesn't mean there is not plenty of action to go around for the rest of you that are still crazy fans of the National Football League. And with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, it makes every playoff moment feel bigger. So whether you're looking at individual matchups in the wild card, or for a possible Super Bowl matchup, or for futures come postseason time, DraftKings has your back, and they also have your back with early exit protection. If the player in your eligible NFL prop goes down at any point in the first half, guess what? You can still get paid in cash. What an opportunity. What a way to be able to enjoy the playoffs and not worry about anybody that you include in those props going down, especially early on, and ruining the rest of all of your legs. So here's what you do. You download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use the code KCSN, that is code KCSN, to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Remember, if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. You must be 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
So Dirk, I think that this is kind of like your baby here. You mentioned that you wanted to get more specific about the running back position. I imagine because of this like buffet of options, man, free agency is loaded with running backs that a lot of people are probably feeling the same way that you and I are, where it's like, man, it's kind of choose your own adventure here. There's a lot of choices, a lot of options on the table. So how you thinking about doing this, Dirk? How you want to talk about running backs today?
Well, I'm thinking of how I think it's written in stone the Chiefs are going to, overhaul the running back room.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much chance Pacheco is back. Maybe Kareem comes back. That will kind of fit into what the question I'm gonna ask. But the question I've kind of been pondering, which is, do you want the Chiefs to go after a stud running back, or do you want them to attack it with a couple of different options that maybe aren't quite the stud? So I kind of asked myself that, and I'm like, I was texting with my brother, kind of just talking it out, trying to figure it out. And I was like, man, the stud options are pretty limited. I think there's a lot of running backs out there that could be solid. And we don't know what to expect. There's a lot of good and bad on their resumes, but the studs are kind of drafting Jeremiah Love at 9 or signing Breece Hall. Maybe Kenneth Walker fits in that category if you want to put him in there. But I think if you want like the guy in the backfield, I think those are essentially your options. The other course you can take is to kind of go with 2 different guys to kind of fill the hole. And then you're kind of mix it in. The other guy might be Travis Etienne. Maybe if you'll see him as a stud. He just seems, I don't know if I'd put him as a stud necessarily. I think he'd kind of fit into the solid options. So you're looking at him, Dowdle, Gainwell, my guy Algier, Rashad White, maybe Dobbins, maybe the Cowboys dude who I don't see, Javonte Williams, the other he is. So, and then you have like a bucket of different guys. And then really, I saw like a tweet from Matt Lane at some point calling it how do you put it? I think it was a generational lack of depth in the running back class. Because my brother was like, well, I think if you still got a running back in the second round, you could still call that a stud. And looking at the draft rankings of running backs, there's not really a guy slated in that second round. Like it's kind of a backup from Notre Dame and maybe a couple other guys, but there's not really anybody that stands out behind Jeremiah Love. So I think your options are limited if you want to go the stud route. I'm just kind of curious, where you are and just kind of talking it out to think how we would want the Chiefs to attack this or how we think they're going to attack this. Either way, is where I'm kind of pondering at this point.
So I think that the 2 like real prizes in free agency in terms of guys that are going to get probably the most money or most security from another team, which, maybe means they're the highest ranked of these players. It feels like it's Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker are like the 2 guys that are probably going to do that. And I might be wrong on Kenny Walker. ATN had a better year than he did. Walker's very firmly in a timeshare with Charbonnet, but like, I don't know, there's some poetry to those 2 as well. The fact that they were taken 5 picks apart in that 2022 draft. I think this is where I'm landing as I've been marinating on this. It's hard to just go into free agency and sign like a bona fide starter that could be like an actual like legitimate star player for you without feeling like you're just having to like overpay dramatically. When you think about some of these like receivers that the receivers, obviously we've talked about how that market has been so inflated. And you can look at offensive and defensive line, some of these building blocks, but like the money still hasn't really caught up at running back. And so I think to me, if I know, or I guess I feel like as an evaluator, if I'm Brett Veach and I'm thinking, I feel like my team is lacking star power and not in terms of like, I need somebody to sell jerseys or sell tickets, but like, no, I need elite players. I need to bring in a couple of players this offseason that literally and figuratively move that needle for us because we felt like we were lacking juice.
Like force the defense into respecting the run game.
Even
with the name. If you throw Javonte Williams back there, they might not respect it. You throw Rashad White back there, like, who cares? But if you throw like Breece Hall back there,
it's a shortcut to respectability, right?
Well, Jeremiah Love, obviously. That's why. So do you want a guy? Are you leaning that way?
I think that's where I'm at. Is that like it's those two guys? It's basically like the best thing that the Chiefs can do for their running game is to either sign the best free agent or draft the best running back, and they have the ability to do either one. Now, I don't exactly know where the contract would come in on Breece Hall. Do you have the spot track projection for Breece Hall handy?
Yeah, it's got it at 10.4 million.
So 10.4 million is what they're projecting. That would be on the average annual value, right?
Yeah. And let me just go down here. They got Breece at 10.3. They got Dobbins at 9.3. That seems way too high for Dobbins, but they're not really factoring in injuries here. I'm gathering. Kenneth Walker 8.4, Rashad White 7, Javonte Williams 7, ETN 7, Dowdle 6.5, Pacheco 4.5, Gainwell 2.9. I asked Twitter. I was kind of putting it out there on Twitter to see what names people are interested in. A lot of Kenneth Gainwell, which I am fully on board with. Gainwell looked fantastic. I think his price will be much higher than this 2.9 that they listed at here. Who else you got here? Kareem Algier, who we've discussed, is only at 1.8. I would think he would be higher too. But those are just kind of the, what do you call, middle class of the free agent running backs.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So, and comparing that, so the 9th overall pick, which is, I guess, just the assumption, right? Like if the Chiefs are picking at 9, the average annual value of the 9th overall pick is at 7.75 million, which I think right now would put it at like 17th or something in the league. It's literally like right dead middle on average annual value for a running back. The guarantees, though, because rookie contracts are fully guaranteed for, I think, first round picks. But the guarantees would be the 3rd most in the NFL, behind Saquon, who has a real contract, and the guy drafted in the top 10 last year, Ashton Genty. So the Chiefs would instantly be giving a lot of guaranteed money if it's Jeremiah Love. Are we fully 100% confident that, like, if the Chiefs want Jeremiah Love, he will undoubtedly be there at 9? Is there a chance he's taken before 9?
I would think so, yeah. I mean, the last mock draft I looked at, I have no idea who it was, but it saw him going like 6th or something. And I also think there will be a thing I'm very interested to watch. There will be a market correction on running backs, I think. After all the success that these 1-year, $3 million running backs had this year, you'd have to think that price would go up. Otherwise, I'm just attacking that. If they're sitting there at 1 year, $3 million, like, give me a couple of those, if not 3, and one of these guys is going to hit.
Well, and I think that, like, one of the big challenges that teams are going to face this offseason is if there is a market correction as far as, like, the 1 year, $3 million contract, right? That kind of became the standard. The Chiefs gave Elijah Mitchell 2.5, but like between 2 and maybe 3.5 million, there were like 8 or 9 guys that signed that contract. It just kind of became the going rate, right? Well, I don't know, like, what the going rate will be this year. Let's say maybe it is up to a window of $4 to $5 million, right? A little bit of inflation, not too much. But, like, I don't know what guys are actually going to fall into that and what guys are going to end up getting more. You know, like, I think that if everyone looks at the free agent list and they think like, ooh, hey, I want a bargain shop. And here's the sleeper name. It's Tyler Algier. And it's like, guys, if everyone says he's the sleeper, if everyone thinks that this is the cheap fix, then every team wants him. And he's no longer cheap, right? Like, and don't get me wrong. If you're a Chiefs fan, I think it is totally reasonable to start connecting dots to Tyler Algier, if for no other reason than this. He went to BYU. I mean, like Andy will go out of his way for his alma mater. And so a guy that has had 1,000-yard season as a rookie, and I think it was like a, 7th round pick or something? 1,000 yards as a rookie, backed up Bijan for the last 3 years, has almost 700 carries, has never fumbled, and went to Andy Reid's college. Like there's a lot in there, I think, that is interesting for the Chiefs, but I just don't think that he's going to be particularly cheap, especially for a guy that has not been a starter in 3 years. And I don't know, it almost reminds me a little bit of like how I was thinking about Mike McDaniel. Like as soon as he became available, he was like everybody's top offensive coordinator candidate, which means he's probably a little bit too good to be an offensive coordinator. If every team wants you to coach, I mean, it's a very different version because of their resumes, but it's kind of like Spags, where it's like, we don't know if you are head coach material, but you're so good as a coordinator. That seems like the assumption on a guy like McDaniel.
And I think you kind of see this in like mock drafts too. When you start seeing Chiefs fans make the same mock drafts over and over, and it's like they're picking the same guys in the 2nd and 3rd round. It's like, guys, they're not. If everyone thinks they're a great 2nd or 3rd round pick, they're not going to be available at that pick. So it's something like that. Algier, his stats, he kind of had a down year this year. His yards per carry dropped off a full yard, and that reflects in his yards after contact. I was trying to figure out how to look at these guys and try and separate them a little bit, but he was at 2.6 yards after contact last year and down to 1.6 this year. And just for reference, NFL average is 1.8. Breece Hall is right at 1.8. Kenneth Walker is right at 1.8. I'm trying to look at some of these other names. Gainwell's above that at 2.1. But that's just kind of, I was looking at broken tackles too. They have attempts per broken tackle, which is a weird way to look at it, but it's just like how often they break tackles kind of thing. Gainwell's really up on that. Kenneth Walker's really high on that. Kenneth Walker's kind of the guy.
He's number 2 in broken tackle rate this season, and he still only played like half the snaps.
Yeah, for like bigger. Yeah. Yeah, that kind of looks like of the more carries kind of guy. But he's always the kind of guy, like his stats don't like look as good as he looks. Like he's really good at breaking tackles, but like he's not like ripping off chunks of runs kind of thing. But I'm always
got some kind of little nagging injury too that just like it worries me that like every week I'm watching the injury report. Is our running back gonna play? I don't know how many games he missed this year, but it always felt like he was a game time decision.
He almost reminds me of like Devin Singletary. Every time I watch him, I'm like, oh man, he looks good. Like he looks good. But then I look at his stats, and his stats are never impressive. But when you're watching like run to run, like, man, it looked like he got the most out of that he could. So it's just kind of a weird running back like that. You just never know when these guys are going to take off. I think there's a good amount of, a lot of people wanted combo picks. Gainwell along with either Dowdle or Algier, which I think would be awesome. I mean, if they were to land 2 of those guys, you're hoping one of them breaks out in a big way, or hoping both of them just are solid. And you can kind of keep them separate, because Algier doesn't have a lot of receiving to his name. Gainwell's a fantastic receiving back. I think they would complement each other perfectly. 2 guys like that. So it's just kind of how you're going to, but then we think of like the Veach way he attacks things. And when he sees a problem, he kind of likes to go out and kind of make a big deal about it. Like, look at this shiny thing that I brought in to fix the problem. And that's one of only 2 names. I don't think Kenneth Walker slides up into that stud category. I think that's either signing Breece Hall on the first day or 2 of free agency, or drafting Jeremiah Love at 9. So I'm very, very curious to see how that goes. But it's almost, and if you got a stud, then I'd kind of be okay with bringing like Kareem Hunt back, and you're gonna roll with Brashard and Kareem and your stud running back, because I like Kareem. He's gonna be cheap. He's a warrior. He's all in to win it for this team. So if you're giving him like a very minor RB2 role, I'm fine with that. I don't want him to be like going into the plan with being like Dowdle and Kareem Hunt. I'm not totally sold on that necessarily. But I think if you have a stud, then I'm cool with Kareem Hunt coming back, which will kind of bleed into our Chiefs free agent discussion we're about to have.
I think that for me, because I just don't, I don't believe that Andy's suddenly going to like fully commit to the run game. Like that, if the Chiefs had James Cook, they would not be in a 50-50 run pass ratio.
No,
like I don't think that they're going to get there. Right. And so,
but you agree that they shouldn't be, right?
I don't know. I mean, like, look, I get that the reason the Bills shifted as hard as they did is because they were probably trying to limit some of the streaky play that Josh would have and the way that he was turning the ball over. If I remember correctly, and don't get me wrong, the first couple of years were very much like the strong base of this statistic being correct. But I want to say that Nick Wright, while on First Things First, had Josh Allen as the most turnovers in the league every single year for like the first 5 or 6 years.
Because he threw so many picks his first year that it was like since 2018 for the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years kind of thing. So he had so many early in his career that he's kind of juked the stats, which I like to do too. So because we both watch The Wire, we know how to juke the stats. We're very big fans of Bill Wrong.
I do think that maybe this is only a 2026 point. Mahomes coming off of an injury and the offense needing to maybe do things a little bit differently, just to throw teams a curveball. You're trying to maybe reinvent yourselves a little bit. Like, I don't think that there'd be a bad, I don't think that there would be this negative reaction to the Chiefs being pretty close to a 50-50 run pass, at least this year. I don't know, man. I think that mostly because I don't think that Andy's going to quite get there. I don't think he believes in the run game the way that he needs defenses to believe in the run game.
Yeah.
And with Patrick, like there's a lot of reasonable explanations for that, but that's where I think if you have a Jeremiah Love or you have a Breece Hall, it does two things. It affects the defense because they're going to start to defend you a little bit differently because they respect that name, like you said. But I think it also in some ways forces Andy to respect it a little bit more because he's like, it's not just Isaiah Pacheco back there. We're not going cheap at the position. If I have a star, like when he had Kareem and he led the league in rushing as a rookie, I mean, don't get me wrong, that was Alex Smith at quarterback. Like, I get that it was a different situation, but I think if he has the right guy, Andy knows how his bread is buttered, man. And if you're talking about an off season where like Travis Kelce retires and you bring in a star running back or you take Jeremiah Love with the 9th overall pick, I think Andy's going to know, like, he's one of my best players. I got to give him the ball, you know? And I think that if they go cheap at the position and maybe it's a combo of, like you said, like a Gainwell and a Rico Dowdle or something. And now we're in a rotation and I'm going with hot hand or this guy only on third downs. I don't know what that looks like, man. I think I'm way more interested in and intrigued by a 3-down running back that's going to be, this is just the volume dude. We're going to feed this guy, ride him till the wheels fall off. And I don't even know if they would fully do that with Breece Hall. To where like part of me just is really, really intrigued by Jeremiah Love. But man, I don't know. When that draft episode that we're going to do next week will be more Jeremiah Love talk.
Yeah, I want to watch some stuff from him and see what. Yeah. The good news is he wasn't a captain on the Notre Dame team who put out a clip about them quitting on the season and promoting themselves as heroes and the courage that it took to quit and not play on a football team. He was not one of those captains, so he's staying on Dirk's big board. He would have been automatically off if he was in that decision process. Also, back to the Eagles with Andy Reid, he kind of had bell cows there. You're looking at LaShawn McCoy and Brian Westbrook. We kind of look at him as a receiving back, but I think they used him as a 3-down running back. He was like always top 3 in fantasy. Like I know some of that is receiving, but like he still like had his guy and leaned on him heavily. And it was a thing at one point where like the Andy Reid RB1 position in fantasy was like one of the biggest locks. because you kind of like to lean on one guy like that. I think we should discuss the offensive coordinator position a little bit because I think it ties into this, because I think there is a lot of smoke around Eric Bieniemy coming back, who is obviously having great success with running backs there in Chicago. I was thinking if he came, I wondered if DeAndre Swift was a option, but he must be under contract.
Yeah, I don't think he's under contract. I don't think he's a pending free agent. The only guy with even remote attachment to the Bears that's entering this free agency, I believe, is Khalil Herbert, who has not been a Bear for a couple of years.
Okay, well, let's get this stuff in order. I want to talk about Bieniemy and then Alex Smith talking about Kafka today. But let's take a quick break and get our stuff together and then talk about that.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your number one source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
So I pulled this up. I've always kind of liked DeAndre Swift. I think he gets a bad rap a little bit. He signed for $8 million a year on his last contract, but he has an $8.8 million cap hit, and they can save $7 million by cutting him. So I think he is a likely cap casualty. So he might be another name out there. There's going to be other names like that that'll be out there. But I wanted to get just your early thoughts, I guess. Maybe not early, but there's smoke around Bieniemy. There's smoke around Kafka. Would you be happy with either one of those, or would you be happy with both of those names coming in? What's your stance on those guys?
I'm trying to make peace with it because I feel like those are probably the top two options that Andy is considering, I guess. I don't really see a path for Nagy coming back. And unfortunately,
if Alex spoke today, and if you were to say that, I feel like he would have a reason for saying that. And he said, did you watch the Alex clip today?
So the Alex Smith thing, he was on Up and Adams.
Yeah.
Friend of the network, Kay Adams. Doesn't want to come on Amateur Hour though for some reason. I saw the clip, and she was basically, I think she said something about like the way that she kind of fed him the OC stuff about him was like, if Nagy gets one of these head coaching jobs, are you going to be his offensive coordinator?
Which she said there was like some smoke out there about that. I haven't seen any of that, but
yeah, we're not in those group chats. He shot that down immediately and was like, I have 3 kids and there's no way it would be like, see you in 5 years if I took a coaching job. But he did say that like he was hearing that Matt was done in Kansas City. And when she asked him, who do you think is going to land there? He said Kafka, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah. Just as a name to watch. And that might be, I think that might be more speculation. I feel like he might know a little about Matt Nagy, just for him to say that and be confident enough to say that on like something that's going to get picked up like that. I feel like he would kind of know. And there's been other smoke out there that it doesn't seem like Matt Nagy is going to return. Like we know his contract status that is up. It seems unlikely to me that Nagy returns.
One of the tricky things I think is the fact that, even if the Chiefs wanted to bring Nagy back, the pull for him to not just get a second head coaching job, like even if that doesn't come to fruition, we talked about in that report where like the Chiefs tried to offer him an extension and he turned it down. And I think that the reason seemingly is that he wants to call plays, like he wants to be known as a play caller. And the last line of the clip that I saw from Alex Smith today was like, if you're an offensive coordinator there's only so much you can do, right? Only so much impact you can have. And that's where like even Kafka is one that like, I feel like there are probably a bunch of teams that are thinking, we want you to come call plays here. And that is, we asked the question a few weeks ago, like, is it a promotion to go from the Chiefs offensive coordinator to an offensive coordinator for a different team just because you would get to call plays? And I think the answer is yes. And so Andy's kind of limited in who might even be attracted to this job. But at the same time, I heard a really great argument against this. At the same time, because the Chiefs are coming off of this season where their offense was so bad and you missed the playoffs, if you bring in an offensive coordinator, suddenly that guy's like the savior. You're going to get all this credit, you know.
I was sitting here waiting to make that point. You fucking took it from me.
Sorry.
I was sitting on, I was like, wait for it. It's like,
please.
but if Kafka comes in, is it Kafka or Kafka? Kafka?
I'm not sure.
Kafka-esque?
Yeah.
I keep thinking of Kafka-esque. Yeah, if he comes in and the offense is much better next year, it's here it is.
Yeah.
Here's my resume right here.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. I mean, I think that Brandon Kiley like presented 4 options in a Twitter poll today. I think it was like sending it to Carrington, and it was basically like, if Andy tells you these are your 4 finalists, who is it that you want? And when I saw the list, it felt very realistic. A lot of Chiefs fans probably looked at it and said, what? Like, that's not what I want. But it was Bieniemy and Kafka, and then an in-house guy currently, Joe Blameyer, who I believe is their passing game coordinator. And then Cliff Kingsbury was the last option, outside the organization option. I think that Cliff is potentially like the furthest removed from the Andy Reid tree that Andy would be comfortable and willing to go. And it's because he probably has talked to him, you know, about Patrick when they were going through the draft process, and maybe even like throughout Patrick's career. I don't know, potentially. But I also just feel like Cliff has kind of failed upwards a bunch of different ways.
I mean, he's interviewing for the Ravens head coaching job.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know. It just keeps failing and then moving up.
I don't know if Cliff is a good coach. I don't. And I know that, like, it's possible that Patrick just likes him, or, well, I had a good time when I was in college, so, you know, like Cliff seems like a good hang.
But I think we do think he is a good offensive mind, where if he was brought in, it's not like.
But isn't like the reputation that the offense always like dies out as they kind of get to wintertime, and you know, he's not like won anything substantial.
But was that maybe a Kyler Murray stat and not a Cliff Kingsbury stat? Because that was the stat. But then he took Jaden Daniels to the NFC Championship. He was calling points for them then.
That's fair.
So I just think if you brought in that combo, I would be very happy.
Oh, like Kingsbury.
No, I'm thinking Bieniemy and Kafka.
And Kafka, okay.
And you say Kafka's OC and Bieniemy's assistant head coach. Just because I think the biggest thing they need to shore up is the running game. I think Bieniemy can instantly come in, help out with the scheme. The running game was better when he was here. That seems to be what he fixed. There's also the accountability and being a hard ass, which they seem to need a little bit of. So I think he kind of helps with that. And then needing like another offensive mind to help with creativity in there. Someone who can chop it up with Andy and help redesign this passing game a little bit, make some adjustments to make it, you know, one of the better passing leagues in there again. And I think Kafka could do that. So I think if you're looking at bringing in that combo, I think I would be happy with that because it shores up both the things that they need.
I think that, man, I don't know. I want to ask, like, how do you think Bieniemy would be received? And I'm not talking about like by Chiefs fans. We are fans. We think about this from a fan perspective all the time. I'm thinking from like the locker room. I mean, there were all these different reports about Bieniemy on his way out the door, and Patrick didn't like him, or there's a personality conflict and all these different things. And I'm like, you know what? You guys have been real fucking chummy, you know, like coach to player the last few years. Everybody's getting along, and maybe it, you know, aside from Travis's occasional outbursts or whatever, but like all I've ever felt from Matt Nagy, that like his aura is I'm your buddy.
It's a good hang.
And when I look at Eric Bieniemy, it's no, I'm going to hold you accountable. And honestly, I'm probably going to irritate you. I'm going to coach you hard because like that's what it takes, or that's my style. That's what I responded to, whatever. And I don't know if the Chiefs have someone like that on their offensive staff. And look, it's an easy thing to grab when you look at the way the offense has performed over the last couple of years, and we can chalk it up to injuries just as much as we could chalk it up to a coaching change. But it sure does seem like something has been missing. And ultimately, maybe the reason that the Chiefs crashed out this year is because they took the 2024 plan and just said, well, once our guys are healthy, we can just do that plan. No one got to see that plan because everybody was hurt. So let's just run it back. We'll do the same plan. And I don't know if bringing in a Kafka, even though he's been gone for a few years, is basically the same plan, or bringing back Bieniemy is basically the same plan. But part of me wonders if Eric comes into this building, the guys that know him and have worked with him are still part of the Chiefs. I think that might be a really small number, but is it hey buddy, good, coach is back, or is it oh man, fuck, it's about to get really intense in here again? I don't know. And maybe the negative reaction is actually what you want. We need someone to come in here and start to, force guys into better habits and stuff, even if it irritates them. I don't know.
Yeah, make you uncomfortable. I think the offensive stuff, I think Andy will be the one that's making changes. I kind of keep coming back to this. I think it was a legit thought to have after last year that we're going to shore up the offensive line. We're going to have our receivers healthy, and then our offense will be back to what it was. I think that was all legit thought. I think that's basically what every Chiefs fan was thinking. That's what I was saying. I know. And then it didn't happen. So I think once that happens, okay, now you have evidence that didn't happen. So now we got to make changes. I don't think Andy's a dumb guy. I think he kind of realizes that. So I think it was a legitimate thought to have that going into last season. It didn't work. Okay, now we see that. So now we got to make changes. So I think regardless of who comes in, there will be a lot of philosophical changes within the Chiefs passing game because it didn't work. The Bieniemy stuff is weird because there was the report when the report him and Mahomes got into it going into halftime of that Bengals AFC Championship game, they got mad at each other or something.
The play where we decided to go for it instead of kicking, and Tyreek got stopped, and it felt like it kind of brought the Bengals back in the game.
I feel like there was a report that they got Mahomes and Bieniemy were screaming at each other, which may be something, or maybe it's just them being frustrated during a game, which is not that big of a deal. But it's also it seems like Bieniemy almost could have come back at this point because he's not getting these upper tier jobs. Why would he go be the Bears running back coach instead of coming and being the Chiefs running backs coach? So that seems kind of weird. So I'm not sure if I don't know if things are on good between everybody. It's tough to say what the relationships are, but I am all for bringing him back, and because I think he's what the offense is lacking. Come in here and start kicking some ass on the offense, bring in some attitude, shore up the running game, and he'll take care of his side kind of thing. Almost like the split of Andy and Spags, offense and defense, the split of Andy passing game and Bieniemy running game, just come in and help shore that up. So I like that.
Another big piece of that puzzle, I think, is just having a running backs coach that you trust.
Who was a running back?
That's sure. But I do think if memory serves, and there might be another name in here, but most of Andy's tenure with the Chiefs, the running backs have been coached by either Dylan McCullough or Eric Bieniemy. And I think that there may be a few recent years, right? But if we look back and their ability to, with the likes of, Spencer Ware and Sharkhandrick West, or Damian Williams, or, Niles Dave, whoever, I feel like those coaches historically have gotten the most out of the guys that they had. And maybe leading all the way up to, the first year or two of Pacheco when Bieniemy is here. And suddenly when we don't have a running backs coach that is kind of a name brand running backs coach, guess what? They suck. And maybe I'm wrong, right? It's totally possible that that's just a coincidence. But having somebody like a Bieniemy or another running backs coach that like is bona fide, this guy has shown that he's been good at this job, and we're not giving somebody a chance to maybe try it out. Like the Chiefs, I think, in some ways, don't get me wrong, it is possible that the creative thinking of I'm going to let a receiver, go coach running backs or whatever, like there's a methodology to some of that. But I think that the Chiefs were maybe doing a little bit too much of like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Like if it doesn't go well, we're still so good that like, that's fine. We can make up for it in some other way. And like when you have a season that goes this bad, it's like, okay, Connor Embry, whoever's fucking nephew that was, you're not here anymore. We need a legitimate NFL wide receivers coach that has bona fide results. We're not giving someone a chance. We're hiring the veteran guy. We're hiring the person we trust. And I think that they probably need to do that at running backs and at receivers. They're going to be looking at quite a bit of change on the roster as well, because we've got a number of expiring contracts. And we were thinking that like as kind of a way to talk about free agency, since we're not going to be active in March, I can't imagine. I will be napping. But I think as a way to talk about free agency, we figured we probably need to go over the exiting players. And so there's a long list of guys. I feel like we should probably just stick to kind of the highlights here. I sorted over the cap. If you at home want to kind of look at the list that we're looking at, I went to Chiefs free agents on over the cap and I sorted it by percentage of snaps. And so our first guy that we're going to talk about today, I'll say about highest percent of snaps, Watson, who has an expiring contract, is Jalen Watson, your boy. Here's the big thing that jumps out to me, because he was a 7th round pick and has been on that 7th round contract. I don't know if this is 1 year or it's the whole thing, but on the very far right of this table on over the cap is guarantees. And in guarantees for Jalen Watson, $85,368. That's not even a Cadillac Escalade. All right.
Teachers make that much.
Jalen Watson has been so vastly outperforming what he's been paid, even with probably like the qualifying things. When you play a certain number of snaps, you get a raise automatically in the pay scale or whatever. I still bet he's made, going to winning multiple Super Bowls and all this and that. I bet he's made $2 million, $3 million. Like it's not a lot.
I think what you're alluding to is he should go out and get a big payday, which
I think that he, much like Charvarius Ward before him, is like, yeah, I do want to stay in Kansas City, but that team is offering me way more money. Yeah. And so he's going to end up probably with the highest bidder, and he should. He needs that money. He deserves it.
You look at the Chiefs' history with corners like this, they're not paying them. I think if you look at the roster, they have his replacements already on the roster with Christian Fulton and Noel Williams showing what he did this year. So do we want to are we going to do like a 1 to 10 thing in this, or just kind of talk about it?
I figured we'd maybe, kind of a buy or sell, I guess, a little, just like a yes or no. I mean, we could, if you want to do numerical, we could, but
I love Jalen Watson. I would consider myself one of the biggest Jalen Watson fans amongst all Chiefs fans. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's much chance of him coming back. So, I mean, I guess that's a sell. I would love to have him back, but I don't think it's in the cards. I think it's almost the easiest decision on the board for all these guys is watching him go to the highest bidder, as he should.
Yeah, I don't think that the Chiefs are willing to max out somebody like this. Is, it's almost like they kind of did that with George. And that's not to say that George got too much money. It's a very team friendly deal, but it was like this, we're going to throw a big number out there, but this is like all that we can do. I don't know if Jalen Watson is that type of player for them. If given the choice to pay a few $1 million less and have a different style of player, would you rather give McDuffie the contract or give Jalen Watson the contract?
What are you saying? A similar number, or
I'm saying no. Like just if the Chiefs decided we're gonna pay a corner, do you want
Which
them
one?
to because you get to think about the building of the roster in this way, where it's like, well, I get to pay Jalen Watson $5 or $6 million less than McDuffie, and he plays outside instead of slot. Like McDuffie's probably a higher ceiling. Like which one of the guys to you is maybe a more valuable building block for the Chiefs?
I mean, it comes down to a simple question: is Trent McDuffie going to play in the slot? Why isn't he playing in the slot? Is that partly his call? Is that all Spags' call? Because if he's not going to play in the slot, then I'm probably not paying him either. I'm probably letting them both walk and addressing other areas and kind of letting Dave Merritt and Brett Veach and whoever is picking up the floor of this Chiefs secondary, just let them go to work and find, slot in these next guys, which you've already got Noel Williams sitting here. You've already got Fulton under contract. Bring in another guy and he'll just be kind of the next one up. I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. So I'd kind of much rather spend those assets somewhere else. Unless you're telling me McDuffie's going to play in the slot, and then it becomes a very interesting discussion because I think he's extremely good there. And that's a much harder position to find, in my opinion.
Because the Chiefs are consistently trying to figure out the money, make it work, because you got to pay Mahomes as much as you can. And, I just assume that if they were going to invest, they would probably try to do it with Jalen. And I don't know. Trent is the better player. But I think if they were we have to choose between one of these two guys, but we got to keep one of them. We can't let all of these 2022 rookie class guys out the door or let it only be George or something. Watson feels like the choice that they might make. The guy has just been so consistent on the outside. I think he's a better outside corner than McDuffie is.
So then what's the corresponding move? Do you cut Fulton this offseason to save the money?
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
because otherwise you're keeping either sliding one of them to the slot, or you're benching either Noel Williams or Christian Fulton next year.
Right. There's not room for it. You're not, and I don't think that they can legitimize keeping Noel Williams on the bench for, much of another season. They're just not in a position to do that. So my guess is that they're really probably not going to make any effort to sign Jalen Watson and just say, hey man, thank you very much. And I hope you make a shitload of money.
Yep.
Next guy on the list is Brian Cook, my guy at safety. As we've mentioned when talking about Brian Cook, he is, to me, I think probably the best safety on the market, and will therefore have priced himself out of Kansas City. I don't know what to do with the safety position. I really don't. And I have no idea what the Chiefs want to do here either. Another very, very, very tempting building block for the Chiefs, should he be available, is Caleb Downs. We will talk more about some of these draft options next week, truly in depth, but Spags is a safety heavy defensive coordinator, a guy that really believes in that safety position and wants a person, like a Brian Dawkins, like a Xavier McKinney, like Eric Berry or Justin Reed. He wants a Tyrann Mathieu. He needs that guy, and they don't have that guy. And I don't know if Brian Cook is as close to that guy as they can get without really having to draft, a top 10 player or whatever. But boy, Caleb Downs, I got a lot to say about him. So I think that they might be in a position where they like Brian Cook a lot, and they might say, we can't afford to lose him, and so they pay him. But I don't know. I think he's gone. I don't think that they're going to say we have enough money to give him. I could be wrong. But that'd be 2 off seasons in a row where your best safety left the team. And that is probably not a great position to be in.
Yeah, it wasn't the story when Spags came back, he was number one on his wish list was Tyrann Mathieu. It was
I thought he coached a season here before they got Mathieu. But that timeline might be wrong in my head. And he came in and Veach said, all right, what's on your wish list? And it was, didn't he get Mathieu and Frank that same offseason?
Yeah. And I think it's the same one, because 2018 was Sutton. And then 2019, they brought in all the new guys with Spags.
And the championship swag.
I think I have that right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just kind of looking. So if Cook walks, you're looking at Chimichurri and Jaden Hicks as your safeties. Jaden Hicks did not get any votes of confidence this season, that's for sure. So it's kind of hard to just plug him into the starting spot next year. I mean, we all thought that was going to be the thing this year, and it didn't happen whatsoever. So it's probably safe to say Chimichurri is going to be one of those. That is an interesting theory that like Spags wants like the guy at safety. And I'm not sure if that lends more to we're going to pay Brian Cook and now he is that guy at safety, or if that bleeds over into I want to draft Caleb Downs and now he is the guy at safety. I think both of those are very on the table, but I don't know if you can do both. I don't know if you can leak. I don't know if you can put that kind of assets into the safety position, paying Brian Cook $15 million, and also taking Caleb Downs at the 9th pick. I mean, that seems like almost too much investment at the safety position. Without trying to give away who I want in the draft, I think it's a sell on Brian Cook as well. And it's almost kind of like leaning into the same thing. Like we bring in good defensive backs repeatedly. So keep that in the bargain bin and spend the money elsewhere where you struggle to find players, at pass rusher and at receiver kind of thing.
Third guy on the list is Travis Kelce. I don't even know how to evaluate this because I think if Travis Kelce decides to come back, the Chiefs will just say yes. And
his body, his choice.
Yeah, right. And we'll see what comes with that. That's a completely different conversation. He's on that list because he has an expiring contract, but he's just in a whole different category.
It would be fun to just have him back on like the veteran minimum. He's like, or like a midseason thing like Gronkowski. That would be kind of fun.
I'll ask one question about Kelce's pay. Is there a way that the NFLPA says you can't play for the minimum? You're Travis Kelce. Like you fuck everyone else if you do that. Because that, like, as a union, they like, it's like you have a responsibility to take a certain amount of money, because if you're one of those big name guys and you take the way down low pay, it affects everybody else. I don't know if that matters, but that's been my one possible hang up on Travis Kelce taking like the lowest possible dollar amount because he just wants to play football. Like, I don't think he can.
It's an interesting question because he's taken such a leadership role with like all the tight ends out there, running the tight end university and all the things like that. But I don't know. I think everybody would kind of take it for what it is. I did just look up Rob Gronkowski, what he was making. He made $9 million and then $8 million in his 2 seasons with Tampa Bay. And that was being a part-time player. I can't remember exactly when he came back. And it looks like he sat 2019. So he sat out a full year and then came back mid-season in 2020. I think that's right. But ends up making $9 million that year, which is, probably more like $12 million or so nowadays. So that's a healthy chunk of change. Kelce obviously in a much better financial situation, even though the weirdest quote of I heard all year was Travis Kelce. It was a few weeks ago now, but he said like, if you could win the lottery or something, he was talking about winning the lottery. And I was like, dude, you've never been motivated by money. You've always taken an under market deal here with the Chiefs, and you're married now to Taylor Swift. Like you already won the lottery, bro. You don't have to win the lottery. What are you talking about? That was a really weird. It was like asking about his retirement. He's like, if I win the lottery, then I won't be back. Like you already did. You already did, bro.
I'm gonna group 3 guys together because they all play wide receiver.
Gotcha.
Juju, Hollywood, Tyquan Thornton. 3 guys that played receiver and all played meaningful roles for this team at various times throughout the season. I think that there's a world where, for some reason, the Chiefs bring all 3 of these guys back.
Really?
If I'm the person that is making the decisions, the only one of these 3 that I even remotely entertain is Tyquan Thornton. And to me, I actually think that I make Tyquan Thornton one of my top priorities of these like guys that were on my roster last year who don't have a contract for next year. He might actually be top of the list for me because I feel like he has shown in just that short sample at the beginning of the year, he's shown more chemistry with Patrick Mahomes, whether it's downfield or just the scramble drill type of stuff, than any other guy on this team for years. Like years. You know how people always used to talk about DeMarcus Robinson? Shout out to D-Rob for a nice playoff game the other night too. But people always used to talk about DeMarcus Robinson where it's like scramble drill, he and Mahomes, they're linked up. Like he just gets it. He knows what to do. And that mattered. And he lasted on this team for 4 or 5 years and was a successful player here and is now in year 10 in this league because of some of the stuff that he learned in Kansas City. And I don't know, man. I look at Thornton and it's like he looks small, but he's 6'2". I think he's the tallest receiver that we have. And he just showed me a lot last year, and he's still not going to cost you a lot. And I think that there's a lot more that you can uncover, especially if you give him snaps. And so I like Tyquan Thornton as at very, very least, you get a pretty high floor and you know what you're expecting. He's been on this team for almost 2 years now. They brought him in. He was practice squad the year before last season. And so like, I just, that's a guy that I want. And I know that we heard about Juju being a leader and all these different things. I'm sorry, Juju's toast, man. Like physically, he's just not able to like actually play a full season. And so it's nice to have him when we get injured and he can play 2 or 3 games. But I think I want somebody that can make a broader impact than that. And Hollywood, I think, actually ended up being our leading receiver, which sucks. But like, I don't know. He's not a guy that I'm interested in having back personally. I get knowing the system and I get maybe some still slightly potentially untapped, something in there. But I'm done. I'm done with that. Thornton, the only receiver of the 3 I personally want back.
I don't think Hollywood will be back. I just never thought he never really seemed to be on the same page with Mahomes.
Clicked.
So that has to factor in. Didn't really accomplish much. And he's a name out there, so I think he'll get money from somewhere. So I don't think there's much chance of him coming back. Juju, I like the idea of Juju being a lifer at receiver 5 for the Chiefs. Someone who can come in, be a leader, help teach the offense, can come in and spot duty. I think he did fine this year. I was fine with what Juju did. He's receiver 5. I don't want him. I'm not counting on him as an option, as one of our 3 receivers is going to play the most kind of thing. But like, if someone goes down, I love a guy like Juju who's going to do all the dirty work, all the blocking, know the offense, that kind of thing, and probably not demand money because he's just happy to be here and be on a winning team, for the rest of his career. So I like the idea of bringing Juju back on a lifetime receiver 5 contract. Tyquan is very interesting just because I think it'll be like what's his market? He showed some flashes. He was a higher draft pick, so people know of him. There is some potential there. So I think it might just be like either there's going to be a spot that comes down to him or a 3rd round receiver kind of thing. And that's kind of like the 3rd receiver in this offense. Obviously there's question marks at Rashee Rice at this point. So that changes every answer to this question right in here. And under contract right now is only Xavier Worthy, Jalen Royals, and the question mark of Rashee Rice. So lots to do in the receiver room. I am down with bringing Tyquan back at the right price. I'd be down with that and just being like, okay, now we're going to utilize you instead of, focusing on these other guys and seeing how we can utilize them. Now we're going to play to your strengths. Like it just feel like he kind of came in out of necessity, but if you're kind of drawing things up for him instead, like, okay, let's see what you can actually do here because we had something without giving it much, thought to it kind of thing.
I think you can actually get him for a bargain and probably get better production than like some of the other guys that would be in free agency that for some reason have this inflated salary. I think that he's still under the radar. And so I like that as an option.
Also, the Chiefs are so bad at the deep passing game, and he's the only one that's showing anything. So like give us something there.
Yeah. What I took from that is that Dirk is comparing or likening Juju to one Jason Avant. The new Jason Avant, if you will.
Love Jason Avant.
All right, I'm going to do another grouping together because we have a bunch of expiring contracts on the defensive line. 3 defensive tackles in Noddy and Pennell, and Tillery. All three of these interior defensive linemen. Tillery.
Artillery.
You were high on Tillery coming into the season.
Their best defensive tackle. Second.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris.
I don't think he'll be back. Who knows with Noddy and Pennell? I personally feel that Noddy I felt Noddy had worn out his welcome. And then they freaking traded for him. Pennell, I mean, it's time. I think, honestly, it's probably time for both of them. Neither one of them really do a whole lot. Certainly not for me. I would love to see the Chiefs figure out defensive tackle this offseason. And I don't think that any of the three of them should be, and hopefully will be, part of that process.
And you're kind of hoping that Omar Norman Lott, what was his injury? Was it like a torn ACL or something?
Oh, I thought. I
mean, it was a season-ending injury, right? You would hope that he could kind of slot in as that second defensive tackle, but he's also not like a nose tackle type that's, the Pennell or Noddy playing that kind of role.
I hope he's good, but man, when somebody gets injured as a rookie and it was like he was supposed to be a gap shooter and then you put 30 pounds on him and he just was kind of I'm just like, it's not good. The vibes are bad.
I feel like both of these guys, or all three of these guys, are on the outs. I think you keep kind of Noddy and Pennell around. You kind of shop around free agency in the draft and see if you can come up with a different answer at nose or defensive tackle. And if not, then you kind of maybe bring back Pennell on a 1-year deal kind of thing. Like if the draft board just doesn't fall your way or you don't find somebody else in free agency. ACL for Omar Norman Lott.
Yeah, he and Pat will rehab together.
But yeah, I think you got to keep those guys hanging around until June. If you need a body to come in and help fill that role, then maybe. But nothing right away.
Charles Omenihu. Probably done, right?
Yeah.
Got to be done.
Disgusting. Dana also got, it's almost guaranteed Dana's.
Yeah, I think I believe he's going to get released.
Can I just say on Omenihu, the Chiefs defense really needs some dog. And I feel like Omenihu was supposed to be that guy. And he kind of did not fill that role. Like you need some nasty on defense. I think it was Frank Clark for a number of years. I think it was L'Jarius Sneed after that. Always bringing the attitude. These last couple years after Sneed, I feel like that's been the biggest thing missing is some nasty, mean players on defense. They don't have enough mean.
I feel that.
I think it was supposed to be him, and he's just kind of disappointed across the board.
The next guy on the list, and really I think the last headline player that could really have a pivotal role for this team is none other than Leo. Nobody knows how to say his last name. We can't decide still. 4 years.
It's Chenal.
I want to say that the pronunciation guide is Chanel, but it's spelled wrong.
What's his snap percentage of that?
The snap percentage, according to Over the Cap, for our guy Leo Chenal was 42.3. And so I'm guessing that's defensive snaps.
That's surprisingly high.
And, he has played a position that is basically the guy that comes off the field when you go to nickel. That's just what they do. It's the automatic, when we want to put another defensive back on the field, you're the guy that comes off. I don't know how to talk about Leo. I really don't. He does so many different things for this team that, they let him play defensive tackle. And he's impacted the game in a bunch of different ways. I have no idea what his value is to the team or on the open market. I don't know if there are teams that are I can't wait to go sign him and he's going to be my starter. I don't know. I have no idea what the market's going to be, but he feels like a guy that you want to keep around. I could be wrong on that, but they're tranquil. There's only so much time left. And I'd love to see what a Nick Bolton, Leo Chenal pairing looks like. I don't know if they'd be able to truly cover anybody, in between the hash marks.
You'd love to see that, huh? You'd love to see that.
I would love to see it. Yes, I'm interested. What do you think about Leo?
So that's kind of the first notes that I have, because I think there's a good chance that they move on from Drew Tranquill. But I don't know if Bolton and Chenal works. So I don't know if you can play those two together as your linebackers. I don't think they ever really have before. But we're also talking about how the run game is on the rise now, and he helps out a lot. Like one of the Chiefs' defensive strengths is being in their base defense and ability to stop the run, and a large part of that is Leo Chenal being good at his job. But then you're paying money to a veteran part-time player, which is always it's kind of troublesome. I mean, it's kind of giving out the Noah Gray contract. Yeah, we liked Noah Gray on a rookie deal, but do we like giving him actual money? Not so much. Not if he's going to fall off with less than 50% of production. So I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to see what his value is. I could definitely see him coming back on a smaller deal, 2-year, $9 million contract kind of thing, pulling that out of my ass.
It would feel great if that's what they got, because I feel like there's also a world where they're just like, we can't afford to lose him, and they give him a 1 year on some big inflated overpay or something. I don't know. That's kind of a wild card for me. There are a number of other expiring contracts for, I would just say, lesser roles on this team.
And then we get to Pacheco and Kareem. They're so bad as two starters.
Yeah,
seems very unlikely. Pacheco, Kareem, maybe.
I think that Kareem, if the plan is like, we're going to give you maybe 100 touches, as long as guys aren't getting hurt, and it's going to be primarily 3rd and 4th downs, like, I'm okay with that. There's a role for him for sure.
That's an important play, and he is very damn good at it. Real quick, is Gardner Minshew the quarterback 2 next year?
I don't think so. I could be wrong.
It's an interesting spot because Mahomes coming off the injury, will he be ready I've been reporting he'll be ready by week 1, but I have been wrong before.
I can confirm your report. Happy to confirm the report that Patrick Mahomes will be ready for week 1.
2 sources, run with that. Yeah. Herbie Teope will be reporting that in no time.
All right, folks, this has been another episode of Amateur Hour. I am Ryan Scott Hall. He is his Dirkness. Last question of the day. Is Matt Araiza the starting punter next year, our final expiring contract?
Definitely.
Yeah, I think they bring him back. That field, they like the continuity, and I don't think it would.
I saw like a punting EPA graph or something, and he was top 5.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. He's not in the top 5 in average, so I'm not sure where that came from, but there it is.
I think this is in the top 5 off-season episodes
this year
of the last few years of Amateur Hour, for sure. Definitely firmly in the top 5.
Re-signing Amateur Hour.
Right. You're welcome, everybody. We will talk to you next week about the NFL draft.
Woo!
Peace.